We'll talk about that.
It's quite poor. Hello and welcome, my name is Ian. This channel is all about music and art, and this is where we talk about music and art. And in this video I'm going to look back at what's happening regarding music streaming in the UK. And over the last couple of months, the UK government's Digital Culture, Media and Sports Committee have been looking into the way that streaming platforms and large record companies manage payments to songwriters, musicians and performers. And on the 15th of October 2020, Parliament published a news article stating that this particular committee would inquire into the impact of streaming on the future of the music industry. The article stated that the inquiry will consider whether the government should take action to protect the industry from piracy in the wake of steps taken by the EU on copyright and intellectual property rights. I knew that some high-profile musicians were giving evidence to this committee, and the first of these meetings was on the 24th of November and another meeting on the 8th of December. Now these meetings were long, lasting over 3 hours each. So what I've done is I've edited them down into shorter videos, and I have put direct links to the questions in the description down below, which will make it easier for you if you want to look at a specific question and not watch the whole thing. It's worth providing a background to the witnesses giving evidence. So in the first session from December the 4th, we have Maria Forte, who is the Managing Director at Maria Forte Music Services. Maria has worked in the music industry for the last 3 decades. She began at Virgin Music Publishers and in the late 70s in an administrative capacity, where she remained for 14 years. The last 5 years of that period as General Manager until the sale of Virgin to the EMI Group. She worked with many contemporary bands, writers including The Police, Human League, Culture Club, Soulja Soul, Clash, Stereophonics. Thereafter she spent 4 years at EMI Music Publishing running the copyright department as well as establishing the sampling department. She continues to work with Virgin Music catalogue as well as a rich and varied catalogue belonging to EMI. In July 2006 she created Maria Forte Music Services. Her clients include Warner Chappell Music for the implementation of their Pan-European Digital Rights Initiative, and she's worked with a number of artists and is currently working with Radiohead through her Warner Chappell consultancy. Kwame Kwaten is a manager, record producer and owner of Ferocious Talent, which he started in 2014. He works with new acts like Sarah Walk, Blue Lab Beats and Caitlin Scarlett. He also acts as international consultant and manages and advises international acts, brands, actors and actresses on the music business in Europe. And José Luis Silvano is Director General at AIE, which is a management organisation for music performers and musicians located in Spain and has headquarters in Madrid, Barcelona and Seville, and works on the provision of the law on intellectual property. AIE manages the intellectual property rights for its music performers. All of the sessions were chaired by Julian Knight, and the complete list of committee members and the relevant links are in the description down below. Now this recording is made in agreement with the UK Parliament Terms and Conditions, which state that I cannot alter the video or the audio of the recording in any way. I can't use this material for satire or use it on websites or social media platforms that promote, encourage and facilitate illegal activity and encourage hatred and antisocial behaviour. So here is part 1 of session 1 into the economics of music streaming.
The proceeding will start shortly.
The 8th of December.
It's the Digital Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee, and this is our hearing into the economics of music streaming. We're going to be joined this morning by 2 panels. First of all, we have Maria Forte, Managing Director at Maria Forte Music Services Limited. We have Kwame Kwaten, Manager, Record Producer and Owner of Ferocious Talent. And José Luis Sevillano, Director General the AIE, the Artists, Interpreters o Ejectantes. Before we start, I'm going to ask for any members to declare any interests. Kevin Brennan.
Yes, I'd like to declare that I'm a member of the Musicians Union and also members of the IVAS Academy, which represents songwriters and composers, and I receive occasional money for working as a musician.
Thank you. Alex Davis-Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to declare that I'm also a member of the Musicians' Union.
Thank you. So I just want to say good morning to our witnesses, Maria, Kwame and José. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm just going to kick off with a sort of general question for all three of you, if you like. Just sort of jump in there and let me, whoever wants to answer it first. In our evidence session, our first one, I don't know if you saw it or not, we heard that streaming, when initially introduced, had made a really positive impact in the music industry. In fact, to such a degree that some artists suggested it almost saved the industry. But today, is streaming still a force for good? What impact is it having, positive and negative? And is the current revenue distribution structure fair? Who wants to go with that one?
All right, I'll do it.
Okay. Maria.
Okay, so yes, streaming is good, and it's been great for the business, for the industry, because the industry downloads were diminishing. After the album was fractured, and that people could buy just one track rather than a whole album. Things started definitely going, downhill. Piracy was rife. So streaming has basically, for the last 8 years, 10 years, has been growing and educating people that music is not free, that you can have a subscription service, pay for music, and which is a good thing, because piracy was not a good thing, and the whole Napster debacle was not good for the industry either. So it is good, but as time has gone on, and basically the industry has kind of shoehorned traditional agreements, to traditional methodology into how streaming is dealt with, and that has not worked. And the result of that is that it's thrown up an inconsistency and an inequitable division of the royalties that emanate from that. So, for example, artists, which, having looked at the last two sessions, how artists feel about this. I would like to mention that something that has not been touched on yet is songwriters and publishers. And that is an equal right to recording. You don't have a recording without a song. And it's really important that songwriters are included in this whole process. Songwriters don't get enough either, and the publishers, by virtue of the fact that they administer those rights. And again, that has been through just morphing the physical world into the digital world. And it just doesn't fit. For a publisher to have 15% and a record label to have 55%, the economics of that does not work. And, with songwriters as well, it's not one writer, it can be several writers. And so the publishing pie gets even more diminished in a granular way, and so it makes even less for songwriters. So I can't remember what the last bit of your question was, but basically that's that's.
I just want to sort of expand on one point before I turn to the other panelists. Just when you mentioned about how effectively, I think what you described there is a sort of transposing of the old model of doing business onto streaming, and how that isn't working. Is that almost by, to a certain degree, accident, or is it design? Is it sort of like basically very convenient for those companies that are doing it?
I honestly, I think it wasn't design initially, but I do think there's a certain design now, especially on the artist side, because why would a stream be a royalty? I don't understand that. I mean, it's a license. It's like a sync license. 50% should go to the artist. I don't understand how the logic of applying a royalty to a stream it is happening. And, less so with music publishing, because music publishing, the agreements work differently. the writers get the majority of, so they'll have 75% or 80% of either a mechanical, and of a performance, they get 50% through their CMO. So the way that distribution happens is different, and also they get more of it than the artist. So there's two different arguments here, and they work differently.
Okay, thank you.
But we must never forget songwriters.
Okay, I'm going to just bring in Kwame and José at this point, just to sort of ask you guys where you think actually streaming is working. In terms of economics, in terms of also consumer experience, frankly, and whether or not it's actually going to help in terms of a pipeline of talent. Kwame,
I think that. Sorry, Jose. I think that where Maria is right, definitely, is this thing of when streaming came along, it definitely nuked piracy, right? It came along and it gave us this new way that was very, very user-friendly, and you could access a lot of content quickly. But again, to agree with Maria, we are years on now, and because I look at things through rose-tinted spectacles, I don't like to look at things and go, you know what, people deliberately did this in the beginning. I think that, so this whole thing of was it by design or, I don't know. But I do know that we have got to, especially when it comes to writers, we've got to fix what Chris Cook calls the leaky pipe. And right now, there's royalty collection going on for writers that is going through 2 or 3 sets of hands before it gets back to writers. And I'm not just saying in this country, I'm saying, collection outside of this country. That it needs looking at. We need, I've sometimes coined the term almost like a magnificent 7 to sit around a table. I say no more than 7 because I think any more than 7 and you can't get anything done. But we almost need one person from management, one person from artists, one person from live, one person from government, one person from, to sit around the table and almost, and this will sound crazy, but Rolling Stone style, be locked in a room until you come out with a result. And when I say that, what I mean is the anecdote is that Mick Jagger back in the day was locked in his room. Himself and Keith were locked in the room until they came out with a song because they didn't want to write original material. Back then they were a covers band, right? And a similar kind of tactic has to be applied because this kind of constant sort of putting off of what is really, really urgent. It's so urgent right now. Writers are suffering. Some of the, as we say, they're losing half sometimes of their royalties, and it's as a state of affairs, it is crazy.
Okay. Can I bring Jose into that point? Jose?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us, especially the performers. Yeah, you asked about the fair distribution of the rights in the case of the streaming. I think. Yeah, if we go to the past, I think when the analogic, you say that the old model broadcasting decided, and with the wrong convention at the rights, I know that this kind of rights that for performers, the lawmakers trying to distribute that money that comes from radios and televisions, etc. 50% for the labels, 50% for the performers. Yes. When we move this model of the traditional radio to the new one that is the streaming, basically, because there is a big mistake about the streaming. Streaming is not replacing sales anymore. I think streaming is replacing broadcasting, and if you want, a kind of rental of music. Who can say that Netflix is more similar to an old blockbuster, or is similar to a shop where you can buy a film? It's a rental right. Then in both cases, if streaming is communication to the public, or if it's a rental right, should be split 50-50 in the case if it's broadcasting. If it's rental, as you have in the UK, the rental right has an equitable remuneration, ER, that you say, for performers that they can manage on top of the contracts that they can sign, because the contracts not only cover the rights, also the image, and also other things. And now the contracts are properly for the relation between the labels and the performers. But on top of that, the performers should be able to manage their own rights. If you pay your attention, the performers are the only part of the music and even the audiovisual that they don't have a direct link with the user. Authors can negotiate directly with the publisher, labels of course, but the performers, they don't have the possibility to negotiate their own rights. They cannot fix the price. They cannot negotiate in the terms that they want. And this is the situation. Talking about, do you say what is fair or not fair? Remember that 50% of one user or customer of Spotify goes to the labels, more than 50% of the money that they are paying. 30% remains at the platform, and less than 10% goes to the performers. And this is unbelievable. And if you try to see how the labels are distributing that money, I can tell you that they don't have accurate information, because most of the future performers that they have contracts, the contract has been lost during the change of selling contracts or sell or labels to this, to that. More than 2.5 billion US dollar was in black boxes last year. Is in the papers, in the newspapers. Last year, $2.5 billion in black boxes without identifying the songwriters and the performers. And then that money remains in the label's account with no possibility to go to the performers. Then we need to use modern systems, as we have the collecting societies. You have in UK one of the most efficient collecting society for performers in the world, that is PPL. They are doing an incredible job. They can collect more than 200 million euros or pounds a year and distribute accurately to all the performers. And the last thing I want to say at the beginning, sorry to be so late, so long, but is that the labels are only compensating the featured performers. But what about the session musicians? You remember the directive? I know that maybe you are not now under the cover of the directive, but they say that the remuneration should be appropriate and proportionate to the actual potential economic value of the music. What about the session musicians? They are receiving zero, nothing from the streaming nowadays. Who is going to compensate that?
Thank you. Steve Bryan.
Thank you very much, Chair. Welcome, everybody. The streaming platforms that we're talking about, they offer very similar services. I mean, they would all argue not, but essentially it does the same thing. And the prices are remarkably similar, and they haven't really changed an awful lot that I can remember in many years. Do you think this is because the market for this product is highly competitive and they're benchmarking against each other, or without talking to each other, or are there other factors in keeping the price down? You could start with that, maybe, Maria.
I think, of course, there is an element of competition, but you always have to remember that, they are competing with free, which is YouTube. People access YouTube to listen to albums and to listen to tracks that they want, and that is free to people, and that's what they're competing with. So, it is competitive between them, obviously, but and they do try, there are new services popping up all the time that are slightly different. And then you have to think, well, how is that going to get licensed? And how do we deal with that new bit? And it's an evolving thing all the time. But I think they need to keep their users. And in fact, with the Broken Record campaign, it's evident that users don't want to pay any more money. However, they would be prepared to pay a bit more if the money went to the artists and the writers. So I think there's probably a bit of leeway, but you don't want to shoot them down because, it'll just push more people to free, and that's always going to be the issue.
But they do want to pay more if they can feel warm and fuzzy about where the money goes. How would that work? The consumer.
Who's going to be? All right.
It's like people saying they don't want to pay more tax, but they're happy for someone else to pay it.
They don't want to. No. I don't. I mean, I think if it's well known that artists are not getting enough money to be able to live on, and the same goes for composers. And basically, I think if the messaging is very clear to the fan base, and an artist's fan base is very supportive of them. So if there was a differentiation between how they got remunerated, then the messaging, it would flow through and people would be more comfortable about the fact that they're paying $9.99 or $10.99, but that £1 is going, it's been changed. People have got to understand that, fans are they have an incredibly strong relationship with their artists, and many follow them around the world, well, pre-COVID, but it's a very strong relationship, and it's all about messaging and making sure that it's fair, because it's not fair at the moment.
Yeah, you say they're very loyal, but I mean, we talked about this the other day with our first session on this. It was Tom Gray from Gomez that I was asking this about, is that people are very loyal and they sort of do want to pay more to do the right thing. I agree with you, but then something comes along that's free, and there's an element of guilt that it's free, but the bottom line, it is free. And
but I don't think it should be free.
No,
that's the other thing.
Thanks. Kwame, what do you think the impacts of all this is on the pricing and the fact that it's unchanged on the music industry?
Hi. Wow. Okay, so yes, the market is competitive. And okay, in my room, for instance, I have platinum discs that I've done with major artists, but also I have, platinum discs and 50 million streamers that are independent, and are streamers of today. So I, as a manager, classically sit in both camps, but then at the same time, I was a performer as well. So the whole thing about the artist, the composer, the musician, the manager, being able to earn properly from what we have now in front of us, it is really important. Explaining and getting across to people all the time that with a great system, you will have a happier artist that once again are able to make a proper living from their art. Their art brings billions to the UK economy. Their art increases tourism. Their art means people in the UK, people view the UK differently. Their art means a youngster from Italy that went to Glastonbury at 16 and is now boss of a huge Fortune 500-ish company will remember that festival and give the UK an order for shipping of over £50 million a year and create 3,000 new jobs, right? Their art will make you and your kids dance around your living room, and their art will be there when your nearest and dearest pass away. Their art will lift you up when you need it, and their art will make you sing loudly at a football match. All of this is how important that group of people are. And mysteriously, right, they seem to have been left out of all of and when I say that, I mean the discussions. And I understand how that happened, but it's time to address it.
Yeah.
We've got an opportunity now to actually, and this is why I do harp on about it. We say it's like, I keep saying, fix the leaky pipe. It's a thing that we at the MMF talk about a lot, right? But we really do. We've got to look at what's wrong and get to it. And if we do get to it, then people will be happy. And we've got happier artists. We're going to have great music. And if we have great music, all of those, I just gave you one example of 50 million quid coming into the UK. There are plenty of those. And when I say round table, I'm talking about, I say Magnificent Seven. The difference being it's got to be a diverse Magnificent Seven now. It can't be just men. Come on, right? It's management, MMF. It's got to be someone from the artist world. It's got to be a representative from maybe from the MU, one from the major label, one representing independence, AIM, one representing new tech, because we've got to have new tech in the room because they will tell us, right? One from live music representing venues and festivals. And they've got to sit in that room and it can't be just a one-off meeting. This meeting has to happen twice a month, every month going forward, because that's how important it is. And I don't care, it has to be funded too, because that's how important it is. If those people keep looking at, because when I say this, it's an ongoing thing. It's so important, it's an ongoing thing. New tech is delivering, we've got Triller, we've got TikTok, we've got Insta, we've got Reels, it's delivering new things to us all the time. And every one of those new things needs somebody to look at it and say, hold on, are you paying this correctly? Are you paying that correctly? Are you paying this? And that all to filter back to musicians, composers, managers, artists. It's all got music companies, labels. It's all got to filter back correctly. So I'm not here to,
thank you. That's very clear, Mrs. Sevillano. And from your point of view, what are the ways that you can enforce the copyright on behalf of the clients that you then represent?
Sorry?
You'll need to unmute yourself, sir.
Oh, José, I think it's
okay, it's back.
Much. Okay. Yeah, if I may, I will go to the previous answer a question about the price. Because I think the market is competitive, and the price is according to the market. I think is enough for the music and the labels and the authors, and I think all the agents around the market, they say the same. The problem is that what you say is that some of music is for free, and then it's for free, and at the same time they are not paying the right amount that they should pay. In the case of you mentioned previously, and this is called a value gap. But the double value gap that we call among the performers is the double value gap. Is there is a value gap for some platforms like YouTube, but there is a value gap in the distribution of that money that the streaming services they are receiving. Then I think the price is absolutely right, and maybe in future, as Netflix did in the past, we can increase that money when the piracy finally disappear and some other competitors, they can put a price. But for the time being, I think is enough for establishing the market. The question is how to distribute that money and how we can arrive to the performers to that money.
Yeah. Maria, just finally on you, I noticed in your biog that you worked with David Gedge of The Wedding Present, which I remember well in the early 90s. You remember in the early 90s when, am I right in saying that was the band that released a single every month?
Yeah.
Throughout the year of 91, 92, something like that. The impacts of streaming and the economics of music streaming, would what they did in 91, 92, would that be worth it these days?
No, I mean, David Gedge is a good example because he still is active and he still is out there gigging and he's still releasing albums. I basically do all the PPL registrations for his label Scopitones. He now owns, he has his own label, he owns his own masters of new material. I've re-aggregated all his publishing, so now he controls that entirely himself, and I help administer that. But, you know, we're coming up to a 30-year anniversary. He's had a few 30-year anniversaries now of albums, and they were seminal albums that were released in the 80s and 90s. And he won't see any money from that because they're old. They're old record deal agreements, and there's a case for breakage. You know, I mean, I do read royalty statements from time to time because I find them fascinating, and you know, I don't understand how breakage can be applied. I know it's in his contract, but how can it be applied to streaming? And he won't see any money because he's an indie artist, and you know, the way the pot is carved up, it's on a pro rata basis. So, you know, if he sees any money, it will be so minimal. It won't be something that makes a huge amount of difference to the income he enjoys through his career, which is mostly from live now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for reminding me that was 30 years ago on the on the day that it was 40 years we lost John Lennon as well, which should be put on the record. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Just to follow up on something, really. I mean, I was very interested by Kwame, very, very colourful image of fixing the leaky pipe and the Magnificent Seven and what have you, in terms of trying to sort of get a new sort of deal for the music industry and would benefit songwriters and artists. Just to play devil's advocate for a moment, why should record companies and streaming actually do that? Because there's no shortage of people lining up in order to make music. So where is the motivation for them in terms of, frankly, fixing a leaky pipe?
Because if they don't, tech has a very, very, very good way of bypassing, right? If you let's look at it. When people needed to access music really, really quickly, what came along? Piracy came along, okay? We have a problem, and the problem is artists really, and fans do want to be paying artists and making sure they can live so that they can go to their gigs, etc. If forever there's this murky water, as I say, I use the other analogy I use is Optrex and eyes, you know, if you can't quite see, then, and somebody else comes along, right, with an opportunity that actually, you know what, removes loads of middle people, okay? What will happen is people will take that as a route forward. And we'll be sat here in another 5 years going, hold on, how do we regulate that? But this time, tech will have sought a way around it that, you know, who knows? Artists might say, do you know what, forget it, I'm going to deregulate, I'm not going to be a member of this and a member of that and a member of that. I'll just come out of it and I'll deal directly. You know, this is why we've got to actually, you know, it's 2020. 2020 has removed the Band-Aid, you know, literally, and you're looking at open wounds, right? And you've got to sit there and go, we've got to dress this. We've got to dress the wound correctly so that it fixes, so that when we go forward, okay, it's okay. And artists and managers and labels and streaming services all feel okay. But there needs to be real clarity, real honesty, real transparency. You don't have that, then people will find another way. And don't think, I've been in the business 33 years, okay? I've seen this a few times. When organizations don't listen and don't hear when things like this go on, another way is found, and everybody all of a sudden is going, oh my God, Napster's come along. Oh my God, it's iTunes. Oh my God. And it's like, don't say we didn't warn you. Don't say we didn't warn you.
Thank you.
So thanks very much for watching. The next video will be a continuation of this first session.